Hello everyone. Hope I'm audible. And let's start the session. We'll wait for 1 more minute. I think few are joining, already messaged. Okay. Hope I'm audible. Sharon, I'm audible.
Yes, it's Jenny.
I think I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, good. Okay. So hello everyone, and welcome to today's sessions. Thank you for joining us for today's knowledge sharing session. My name is Gini, and I have Sharon with us. And today we have a topic to discuss and explain, which is how to use Ansible for user management, especially for Linux user management. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Sharon. Sharon is an expert and enthusiast in Ansible automation, containerization, and many other technologies. So he will talk about his experience and interest very soon. So before we proceed, this knowledge sharing session will be recorded and will be available in the same YouTube channel or same YouTube link. So we will also share the slide deck and also the GitHub URL, whatever the resources we are explaining here. So stay tuned, and we would like to hear from you. So if you have any questions, any clarifications, please ask in the chat box. We will try our best to reply for that one. So now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Sharon. And Sharon, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Jenny. Uh, Hello, everyone. My name is Maithili Pitani. Um, a little bit about myself. I have experience on Ansible for almost 5 years and 10 years experience on Linux and Unix systems. And today I'm here to present on Linux user management using Ansible. And so we're using Ansible. We mostly use a couple modules. Um, to create users or groups. And so the two of the modules we use are Ansible user module and on the group module. And we have reference links like in the Ansible docs where like how to create the users, and if you can see the snippets like the examples like name of the user and user description and what UID we are providing for that and which group uh, we're going to have the user to be part of. And the same way, if you want to input any shells or any secondary groups and remove the user. So this is like an example for the user module. And the next one is a group module where we create the groups for the on the target systems. And this is the Ansible doc group module references. It's the same like where we input the name, the state, whether we want to create the group or remove the group, and uh, change the group IDs. And I have a few use cases where we create a standard users and the groups. And the next one, we create the users with Vault. Vault is basically to protect your passwords and then like exposing them when you creating the users. And the other one is like using a CSV, and like basically we pull all the needed information from the CSV file and then create the users and the respective groups and the secondary groups for the user and set the home directories and everything. And the fourth user case is creating users with respect to the host name. So say for example, the first host needs only 2 users and the second host needs only 1 user. So that's one of the use case. And the remaining case like set the passwords or revoke users or lock the users or unlock the users. So let's go, and I'm going to show a demo. So I have a Vagrant lab setup where we just make sure we're able to communicate with this server. So it's a good sign. And the first playbook is, so this is a, not this one, sorry. So this is a sample playbook. And one good advantage is always recommend use a get ent so that you can pull the existing groups or password information ahead before you're creating any user group. So I have a variable file where I'm going to show you now. The second one is I'm collecting the existing or current groups on the target host. And so basically we'll be using the get ent module and what kind of database like group password in the service. I'm going to split it and making sure it doesn't have any failed key. And then I'm going to create a group where I'm creating a loop with respect to the variable file. And basically I'm giving the name of the group and the GID, the group ID, and the state is like a present. So go ahead and create it. And I'm using a condition like create this group only when it is not in the existing collection group list we collected here. And the next one is creating the users. Again, we'll be using the get ent module, but this time we'll be using it as a password. So which is basically the etc password file information. And we're going to create the user. This is like a standard default, like a basic user creation where we giving the username, the UID, what's the primary group of the user, and the state present, meaning the create the user, and we are making the loop out of it. And using a condition saying when the group, the username is not in the get ent password. So if it is in the part of the get ent password, it skips the task for that specific username to create, which means the user is already exists there. And next, we are creating the SSH directory on the user home directory. And then if you have any public keys, you can copy your public keys to the target nodes where later you can access servers like now with your SSH keys. So and the variable file I have is pretty basic one, which is like, add user is the loop name and the name of the user and the ID and the second username. So I just picked some random UIDs because it's not a system user. You can pick up anything above 5,000. So if I go and push the playbook, as you can see, it's first gathering the color and see it created the groups because it's not part of the doesn't exist, and it created the user and also the such folder in the user home directory. So let's go. So you can see so these are new users we created just now. Like it picks a default shell, whatever the OS has it, but you can mention the shell too. There's a username and the UID and the GID, and you can see these are the primary groups and for both the users. And we can make like changes we need. Say, for example, we can add something like comment test users, and we can also change the shell to, let's say, in bash. So when you push the playbook, One thing is, yeah, it's not created because of our condition we given. Let's comment this one first. As you can see, change the user task we're working on, and if we verify it, it has been changed to English. So we can perform all the user related, the user description and the user home directory, or the shell or the UIDs and the GIDs. And we can also add secondary groups. Say, like, for example, if I want to add a secondary group for this one. So the secondary group gonna be groups, and say I want to put on the part of the sudo, and execute the playbook. It has changed again, and you can see user 01. It has a sudo secondary group. So this is one first use case where you can just create straightforward user IDs and password, user and groups. And now, if you want to set a password, there is one way of doing it. One is just input straight away the password here. Say password 123. Give me a second. It's password and the hash. So as you can see, this is not the secured way, but just for the demo I'm showing you. And I think I did undefined here. Let me put under available file. Okay. And run the playbook again. Now this time it sets the password. Let me do one thing. Let's set a, I have a small Python script where we set the hash password. And let's go. And say password 123 is a password, and just copy this one. Set the password. can see it changed the set the user password now, and you can verify it. Shadow. So now it set the password for them, and we can try using the 0108. Excuse me. It's my system. Let's try now. And we give in password 123, and we're in the host. So this is how we can set in one way, and the other way is you set the variable name for the password. So let's say we have a password underscore hash. Oh, okay, that's fine. And item dot password. And the user variable we set password as password 123. And if you run the playbook again, it sets the password. So, but one thing to notice here, every time you run the playbook, it keeps changing the password, which we don't want to like. So there's one option where we can put update it is update underscore password on underscore create. So what this does is like a new user, it just the password only when it creates. And but when you the default option for update password is always. So every time when you run the playbook, it keeps setting the password. So when you run the playbook, as you can see, you've not made any changes for the user this time. So the user password is already set. So it never changes the password unless we want to change it back again. So this is like one use case where you generate any hash password. You can use like MK password or any of your own Python scripts, but I use the one of the Python script where you can just input your own password, and then it creates the solve password for that, and it's like a random generating password with the you just import this script modules and the system modules, and then the length. So basically, one is where you put the password name like I did here. If it is not there, then it's just gonna show like, hey, you must input the password. And then once you provide input, it's gonna change it to any of the method you pick, and then you can use that one as your password input variable. So this is the first use case, like where you create passwords and set the groups. The second one is we will be using the vault instead of inputting in a variable file or somewhere. So already create, this is our playbook for the vault, using with the vault and how to create the passwords. So say we have like two users here, Alice and Vincent, and all we're doing is setting up the password and using the shell bin bash and update the password only on create. And we input our vault file here, and to create a vault file, we just do a create and use whatever file you want to use. Like I use my vault in here. So let's see what password I set. And as you can see, this is my password, and this is password 123. So if you want to use this one, so when you run your playbook, it's going to fail because it's trying to get the information from the vault file. Since we did not inputted the password, it's not going to decrypt the value we provided it. So we're going to use the option vault password, and now I'm going to provide the vault password. Once again, I have to check the host files. Oh, my bad. I was in the wrong location. So just give your vault password, and now it created it. As you can see, the users have created and set the passwords with password 123, and you can check. As you can see, I'm able to log into the user with the password I set. There's another way. Instead of every time manually inputting the vault password, you can just put it in one of the your own files. Say like, so I just create a password text here where it has the actual vault password. So what you're gonna do is instead of ask vault password, you're gonna input vault password file and your file name, but I'm just giving the path because it's in a different location. So now it didn't ask about the vault password because we already mentioned the password file location for that. And it did not change anything because nothing has been changed, any password or anything. And say you want to change the value of the password, do Ansible vault, and you're gonna ask for the vault password, and say I want to make it like cap p password 123, for example, and you can run the playbook again, and now it changes the password for the two users. Now it changed the password. So and try again. Now we're able to log in with the new password. So this is one of the use cases where you can use a vault and set your password with a desired password variable and put it in your playbook. And that way you can set the user password in a protective way. And I'm going to show you the playbook once again. So basically you input the variable file of the vault file you created, and then the user module where you can input any of your sub inputs you needed, like a name, password, which is we needed for the vault, shell, and the state of the user will, like, to create them or delete them and update password, and I use a loop creating 2 users. So this is the vault use case, and the next one, let's say we want to create the users with respect to only the host name. So say we have a create account now, and since we have only one server, I'm going to put like, only the Windows server and the account information like account name, ID, the primary group and secondary groups on what kind of shell, the user description, the state, home directory, and the create home directory. So the first task I'll be doing is just create the groups, like a straightforward. And again, we're doing a one pre-check, which is to make sure that to collect the existing user information, and the same way for the group. And, excuse me. And we're going to check for the primary group, like whether the groups are existing or not. Here, if you observe, I'm not using the default primary group. I'm using like some other primary group, like group A. And that's the reason I'm checking for the primary group. And we have conditions like, when it is just print this debug when it is not, the primary group doesn't exist, then it's gonna print the debug message. And here I'm using the with sub elements. Basically, it's gonna pick up from the server list, and the first item gonna be the server name, and the sub element gonna be the account from where it's gonna pick up all this input information we needed to create the account. And the next condition is like, say if the account exists, then it prints the, say like the account exists on the server, then it might skip this one, creating the user too. So as you can see here, this is our user module, and we're gonna pick up the name as item.1.account name because of the sub elements, and the groups and the state and everything, the UID. If we didn't provide any UID, it's gonna pick up any UID available greater than 1000 because it's not a system user. System users are like basically which are below 1000, which is like 999. And the description of the user, and we are going to create the home directory, and the home directory is whatever the one we inputted up, and we just registering the create status. And we're going to create this user, and we made a condition like if it doesn't exist in the list, in the existing list, then create this user, or it's going to skip the task. And it's going to check the user home directory permissions, and it's going to set it 70. By default, it sets 70, but it's extra precautionary thing because it depends upon the organizational requirement where they need their own permission to set for the home directories. Because some might say like, hey, we need all users of this group need access to all the user home directories. So this is one of the use cases where it runs only for that specific user on the server and the respective conditions whether the user exists or not, or the group. So let's execute this one. I'll show you how it works. And create account. As you can see, it created the groups, and then it collected the information we needed for the user and the groups. It also got the group information, and it skipped these two because none of them conditions satisfied because it's not exist. So the next one is it created the account, as we mentioned with the inputted names. It checked the user home directories, and then it set the permissions for it. So let's go and check the user condition on the server. So we created the account, the UID we inputted and the group and the description and the user home directory and the bash. One thing we need to notice is like I haven't set any password for this user. So that means it's gonna be, the account exists, but it is locked. So if you see it is locked. It's gonna unlock only when you set a password. So without you setting a password, you cannot log in. The user exists, but you cannot log in to the server with that created user. So we can go ahead and set the password, which I'm going to show you now. So let's say it's the same way, server list and the server name and what account ID and the password. You can set this password either with the vault again, as I mentioned in the previous use case, or you can just for the demo purpose, I'm just inputting the password here. The same way it collects all the existing user information and printouts whether the user exists or not. And it checks the password status of the user. And it's just gonna clear any failed logins or unlock the user account whether it is locked. And then it sets the password we inputted. So let's go ahead and execute that playbook. And you can see it has changed the password after verifying all the conditions we inputted, and it created failed logins just to make sure nobody tried to log in without giving the password. And you can see the shadow file. See, now you can see it has set the password. That means the user is not locked anymore. Now it has set with the password. So now you can try to log in. And it's going to ask for the password, and maybe the wrong password, I guess. Let me check. Oh, my bad. So account ID is the wrong. So we are good with the user ID now. And the next use case is what you want to do with the account, whether you want to lock the account, unlock the account, or revoke the account. So that's the other use case for that is the playbook is. So we have WAR files for that one, and it's going to collect all again the user password list and check and confirm us whether the user exists or not. And then say we have, depending on the situation, the organization say we want the user to be out of the server before we deleting it. And also if any processes that left over by the user that needs to be killed, we just use the command pkill and it kills the user respective process only if it exists. And then based on the condition, we use a variable here, account action. So what it does is if we say just lock the account, it's going to lock the account, setting the shell to use no login, has been no login, which means user cannot log into the server. And this task executes only when we give the variable value as the lock. And then the extra precaution step, we just password lock the account, password -L, and that locks the account. And finally, it's a revoke account, where if we want to completely remove the user account, you just give the value. I'm going to show you the variable file for that, but once we give the account action as revoke, it's gonna completely remove all the user related files and everything. So account 2. So as you can see, these are the variable file with all the information, account name and ID and everything. We don't need this information. These are so for example, let's start with the lock. And when we run, as you see, it's terminating all the current processes. It locked the account and also the password. So let's go and verify on the target server. You can see it is locked. And see it has a lock exclamation mark, which means the account has been locked. And if when you unlock it, then it's going to be back. Then user can log into the server. So so to unlock the account, I believe I can put in the change password. Let's go add this one use case, the revoke. Maybe we can go ahead and unlock it. And say we have unlock. And don't forget to update our variable file to make the account action to unlock here. Now run the playbook again. As you can see, it just unlocked the whole the account again, and then we can verify it and see it is back. The account is unlocked now, and also the password shows it got the password back. That means the account has a password and it's not locked anymore. Say you want to delete the account now for some request from the application team or anything. So you just provide the account action as revoke and execute the playbook again. So it skipped all the lock and unlock tasks and everything, and then the only thing it performed is it removed the user. So we can verify it. So as you can see, we don't have the account anymore. So none of the account exists. User home directory exists in the home folder, and also the user does not exist. So this is how this is one of the use case where you can control the user creation, locking, password change, revoking, or unlocking the user, or changing the user home directory, anything. This is one of the use case, and we can also be done with respect to that specific host name and stuff. Say you have 10 hosts, and you have like 10 different users. We can use this kind of use case set only for that respective host name to be done. The user management. So the next use task is, yeah, I think. So one more thing. Yeah, say we want to create some on-fly password where we're using the lookup Ansible lookup filter where we just creating a password like some random characters and the length is like six line characters and we given user information like the name, the first and middle last names, the UIDs. So what happens when you don't create the input the groups? That means it's basic user at command where it creates the specific user one primary group as a user one. So this playbook here, what it's doing is like it's gonna make a password variable generating random six keys. This is one of the good use cases where you can create a new users with a temporary password and then have the user change the password when he logs in the first time. I think everybody knows we use a chh command and that should make the user change the password on the first login. You can add that in here. So let's say user first login change. CHH minus D0, and we can provide item.name, and we can loop. And say, let's make like create status, and we can put a when condition such a way like only when this is changed, or else it won't do it because what if a user already exists and we didn't make any changes? That's going to be a little bit problem because user gets a prompt to change the password like the next time he logins. So let's go ahead and run the playbook. As you can see, it created the user, but say we don't know the password now. So what happened is like it generated the password on the playbook working directory, and you can see it created with file name for user one, user two, and user three. And you can see this is a random generated 6-digit password. So let's see. Just keep forgetting the IP address. Okay. Now it asks for a password. And as we said, to change the password on the first login, so you're going to give the current password and type password 123, and that's it. And when you log in, it works as a first, whatever password we just set for the user. So this is one of the way where we can create a temporary password on fly, and you can share that random generated password to the user, and then when they log in, they can set to their own passwords. It's like for anything like the previous use case I showed, we can use the same thing to change the password on the first login. That's all, folks. I think I covered pretty much the use cases we have with the user management. And yeah, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. That was a great share. I think we have a few questions. Okay, maybe we can take the last one. Someone asked in the same file module, do we have any option to give the multiple groups like a primary group and secondary group?
Yes, we can. So
I-
let's pick the first. So as you can see, we have the first playbook I showed. We're going to input group and groups, and yes, we can input in the user variable file. So we can give the group names here. Like say you want to add secondary groups sudo here itself. And same thing, I'm just going to give the same sudo group and you're going to input the item dot groups, and that's it. Once you execute the playbook, it's going to create the user with the primary group and secondary group, whatever we input in the variable file.
Okay, okay, thank you. I hope that's the one. If you mean the user thing, yes, it's possible using the multiple groups. But if you mean, okay, just to clear, if you mean the file module, like you want to give the permission for file, I believe the file module can give only one group. Then you can use ACL module. Is that correct, Sharon?
Yes, yes, you cannot set multiple groups for one file or folder.
Yeah.
You can use ACLs for that, but
Okay.
it's highly precaution step to set the
Yeah.
ACL, make depending upon your security level requirement.
Yeah. True. True. Yeah.
But if
Thank
you
you.
want to have just create one group and have all the multiple group of users to set in that one group, and then you can provide access in that way.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. And another question is like, there was some question, but I didn't get the meaning. Like someone asking, okay, is there any playbook setup for Ansible nodes from master without manual login? Because everything I mean, Ansible will without log in to the managed nodes without any manual login. So Ansible will take care of the login and execution, but I don't really understand the question.
I
So I just
think, yeah, we do a pre-setup between the Ansible control node and the target nodes where we use SSH keys copied, and backend Ansible gonna uh, communicate with the servers with SSH keys um, on the target nodes. You can
okay.
also do with the password, you should give like -k option and then it prompts the password for you. But it's always better to use SSH keys as the best way.
Okay, yeah. Another question was there already answered, but yeah, I just want to highlight. If you use become, then remote user should have sudo access. The question was like using become true or yes means the functional user ID must be in the etc sudo as file
Yeah,
with no password. Yeah,
it can be part of the sudo or wheel group. Then it
yeah,
can have the respective sudo rules. Or if you don't want to have the sudo, you don't want to have everything, then you can create a sudo rules file where you can set like whatever commands you want and then no password option in the sudo YRS file, and that should help you out with set up your or do your task with with sudo access.
okay. Yeah, one more question I found. Okay, anybody can see the password in the vault. If you are talking about the vault, no, the password will be encrypted. It won't be visible. I
Yeah,
think even in the
so
playbook, it won't be visible if I'm not mistaken.
no, it won't be visible. So let me show you. Say, when I showed you the vault use case, so this is our vault file where we encrypted it with Ansible Vault. And when I open it, you see nobody can see what is the content of this file.
Yes.
For the demo
Uh,
purpose, for the other playbooks, I use the password directly, which is not the recommended way, but just for demo purpose, I input the password there.
yeah, that's for the demo purpose only. Um, Python. Okay, how to call the Python file? That one's just a sample. You can use any method, right?
We can use any
Then
method, and one of the methods you can use like update your Ansible CFG to use the default Python interpreter. Like for my server, I have Python 3. I just uh, input an option interpreter underscore Python. And if not, you can use your host file or inventory file where you can set a variable called Ansible underscore Python underscore interpreter and give the path of the Python um command, Python file, wherever you have it on the target server.
okay, yeah, good. Do you have any code for this repository? Yes, I believe we will share the
Yeah,
repository.
I'm going to create a repository and I'm going to share it. I'm going to put it in the chat after
Okay.
this session.
Yeah, thank you, and think we have covered almost all questions. If we miss any questions, please ask in the chat. We can reply or answer that one. Um, Actually, my apologies. I in the beginning I was sharing the wrong screen, wrong slide. Sorry for that. And actually, that one we planned for um, coming weekend. We have a session for Ansible for managing the Linux file system. So that one will be happening in on Saturday, right? Saturday,
Yeah, this.
and yeah. So maybe if no other questions, I can switch to the switch to my screen and okay. So thank you again for joining the session. And if you have any questions or feedback, please go to this. You can just scan this QR code, or you just go to this URL and submit how was the session, anything to improve, any topic you want to propose, like okay, you have some issue, something which is useful for everyone. I mean, we can just arrange a session like this. And this is a session we planned for next, I mean, the coming Saturday. It will be happening on 8:30 Singapore time, or 6 p.m. Indian time, or 7:30 CST. So we will discuss how to use Ansible for the Linux file system management. So see the LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever we just publish the session details and the links. Um, so yeah, stay tuned. I think there's a question for us. Ansible.cfg file always comment. Is there always comment? Is there, do we need to uncomment or not?
Oh, I think yeah, the default generally Ansible.cfg is commented because yeah, and you have to uncomment whatever requirements you have for your you need to have for the Ansible CFG. But yeah, you can comment them and enable them. But the
Yeah.
default file which you get part of the installation file, it's commented out. Yes.
Yes, so that's a default one. Even you create your own Ansible.cfc in your project directory for your own project specific configuration. So you just take whatever configuration you needed and put in your own Ansible.cfc in the current project directory or in the home directory, whatever your choice.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
your current working directory where you have playbooks, you can just create Ansible CFG and that becomes your current Ansible config file rather than the default Ansible config file, which comes part of the package.
Yes. Okay. I think again. So I think we cover almost all questions and anything new. Okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you again for joining the session, and thank you, Sharon. It was a wonderful session. I believe he learned a lot of things about how to use Ansible for creating, managing users, how to change the password, lock the user account, unlock the user account. Yeah, all those things. And Sharon, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
I'm good, and I'm going to share the repo link after this session. And thank you everyone for attending the session for today.
Yeah, thank you. And stay tuned. We will have the next session on on
Uh,
Saturday on Ansible Linux file system management. So if you have any questions, please ask in the chat or even in the comment or in the LinkedIn. So we will include the items in the session, like how to do this related to the file system management. And so I think we can end the session. Thank you again for joining. Yeah, see you. Take care. Stay safe. Bye bye. Thank you.
thank
Thank you all. Thank you, Sharon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.